Good afternoon, everyone. Jeff Jensen, Director of Community Programs with Trees Forever. I want to thank you for being with us here for our last Stewards of the Beautiful Land. We saved the best for last, I can assure you. So today we have a fantastic lineup. We have a Roadside Roundtable. Christine Nemec, Program Manager at the Tallgrass Prairie Center with Iowa's Roadside Program, is here, and she's going to talk all about the program, how counties and cities can get involved, and a nice overview of that. We have Griffin Kabalka, the roadside manager in Blackhawk County, with us live. He's joining us from a tractor. That's dedication, folks, right there. And he's going to give us a real quick rundown of a roadside program in Blackhawk County. Then we have Story County roadsides. Unfortunately, Ty couldn't be with us here, but I did get a nice video of him earlier when he had a nice field day for us and they had all their equipment out. So we'll play that. And then we'll wrap up with utilizing natives in home landscaping. And so that's going to be a real treat as well. As usual, these webinars are going to be recorded, so there will be an opportunity for you to see them on YouTube and to share with your friends, most definitely. With that, let's get started. Just a reminder, you should be able to see and hear us, but we can't hear or see you. And so if you want to communicate with us, you'll need to utilize the questions tab, there we go. Just a reminder, we have our Stewards of the Beautiful Land landing page on the Trees Forever website. That has all the information for the various field days and webinars that took place. We also have the Facebook group. This is the Stewards of the Beautiful Land Facebook group. That's an opportunity to stay engaged. You can post to it. We post to it. And so even as things ramp up here and fall turns into winter, we are going to keep that updated from time to time to share pictures and videos of places that we've been, especially in the heart of winter when it can get pretty rough. It's nice to see some sunshine and some flowers blooming, so stay tuned for that and monitor that. Again, just a reminder, you should be able to hear and see us, but we can't hear or see you. And so utilize that questions box to ask questions or to comment. This is our final webinar, and today is our final field day up in Cedar Falls. Bree Hull's going to be up there. They're doing a fall planting and a winterization workshop. And so if you're interested in that, again, you can find those details on our Trees Forever events page or on the Stewards of the Beautiful Land landing page on the Trees Forever website. To the task at hand, this is our Roadside Roundtable. Again, we have Christine Nemec, Manager with Tallgrass Prairie Center's Iowa Roadsides Program, Griffin Kabalka, Ty Hamill, and myself. And so with that, let's actually get to it.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine Nemec. I'm the Program Manager for the Iowa Roadside Management Program here at the University of Northern Iowa Tallgrass Prairie Center. And today I'm going to give you an overview of what Iowa's county roadside and city programs are all about. Then you'll hear more detail from the county perspective a little bit later on. First of all, if you're learning anything about Iowa's roadside programs, you might hear the term integrated roadside vegetation management. So what does that mean? Basically, it's a cost-effective, environmentally sound management for roadsides. It consists of reduced mowing. So of course, roadside managers need to mow right by the pavement for safety reasons. But once you get further away from the pavement, that's not as necessary because there's those sight lines, the short vegetation by the pavement. And that helps save money on fuel for the county. It's a safety benefit because the roadside staff are spending less time on steep slopes, and there's less chance that the mower might kick out stuff into the roadway, such as rocks or other materials which could affect drivers. It also means planting native plants. As you can see in this diagram, smooth brome and Kentucky bluegrass have much shallower root systems compared to native grasses like big blue stem or side oats grama. So those really dense Deep root systems of the native plants are effective at holding the soil in place, at reducing erosion, which is important on steep roadside slopes. This is a cross section of some native plants. This is about 8 years after this prairie was seeded. So you can see even after just 8 years, those dense root systems are starting to develop, showing in real life, as opposed to that drawing, the tremendous benefits of those thick root systems. And of course, the root systems also improve water quality because they're able to absorb a lot of nutrients. Brush control is another aspect of roadside programs or integrated roadside vegetation management. So this is a before and after photo of some brush that was removed along the roadside. For safety reasons, it's important to keep a clear area near the road, free of any brush or trees in case a vehicle departs the road. Weed control. There's some weeds, noxious weeds, that the county and city are legally obligated to control. Other weeds might be a nuisance, or they might form dense stands that outcompetes native plants, so it's important to get a handle on it. In an integrated approach to roadside management, these weeds are prioritized. So it's not blanket spraying large areas of the roadside with lots and lots of herbicide to get rid of everything. It's prioritizing just the worst weeds, spraying them with the right amount of chemical at the right time to reduce their impact on the neighbors and on the native plants in the roadside. And that takes a lot of knowledge. The roadside managers need to keep up on their technical knowledge of how to prioritize and control weeds the best. Prescribed burning is important. About half of the counties and maybe some of the cities do prescribed burns in their roadsides. This is an excellent way to prevent brush from taking over. And prairie plants are adapted to fire. They need that to keep the prairie plant community healthy and thriving. Periodic prescribed burning, maybe every 2, 3, 4 years or so, is healthy for prairie. Counties and cities that want to use this approach to roadside management can also access the Living Roadway Trust Fund that Iowa has. This is unique. No other state has a stable source of funding to help support this approach to roadside management at the local level. This shows how this fund is given its money. There's the road use tax fund, utility access fees, and REAP, or the Resource Enhancement and Protection Fund. REAP funds themselves come from license plate sales and also from gaming receipts. So about 3% of all REAP funds go toward roadside vegetation management. REAP is a very important source of funding for roadside programs. If counties or cities want to apply for LRTF funds, they need to have an IRVM plan on file with the Iowa DOT. Now, I've been talking about counties and cities, but applicants with statewide impact, those entities that do research on roadside vegetation, or they provide services to counties and cities that do this type of management, they can also apply for grants to help them in their support of the local entities. So what is an IRVM plan? It's basically a business plan or guidebook specific for a county or city. There's 61 counties that have a plan and 22 cities in Iowa that have a plan. These are typically on the Living Roadway Trust Fund's website. They're redoing their websites. They're not all up there, but you can reach out to the Living Roadway Trust Fund if you want to get a copy of your county or city's plan, or talk to your local officials if you're curious what your county or city's plan is like. There's currently 308,000 acres in Iowa that are managed under a plan. I should add county roadside acres that are managed under a plan. So about half of all the county roadside acres are managed using these integrated techniques. We don't have a good number on the amount of cities. Of course, that's a much smaller area we're talking about, but with 22 cities, there's probably a decent amount of acreage for those cities that are managed under a plan. If a county or city has a plan, I'm going to give you some examples of the types of materials they can apply for. One is specialized equipment. This can be hydro seeders, drills, broadcast seeders, equipment for doing prescribed burns, spraying. That's the type of equipment that the county needs to do these specific integrated types of techniques. That's a huge category that many counties and cities are interested in. There's electronic equipment that can be tablets, GPS equipment, GIS equipment for mapping, spraying records or planting records, capturing that field data. Those are the types of equipment that falls under electronic equipment. Walkie-talkies, that's important in the field. Grants for roadside inventories and remnant vegetation surveys, especially when a county or city is first getting involved. They often want to know the baseline conditions they're dealing with. If they get a grant for an inventory, they can hire a contractor to go out and record what plants are in the roadsides throughout the county. This is usually kind of a broad scale approach, a windshield survey, but it's information that allows the county or city to prioritize where to put their efforts. They know where the worst weeds are, the weeds that are become a problem if they're not contained right away. They know where the brush is. They can find out if they have any remnant prairie in their roadsides, which does happen. Some people just assume all the roadside vegetation is disturbed, there's not much diversity, but there are little pockets of prairie now and then, and that's what an inventory can reveal, and that allows the county to protect that remnant. Education projects. These grants go toward the annual roadside conference, invasive species conference, forestry mower field day, an outdoor learning environment conference. Those are examples of the types of education events that might be funded. Gateway projects, entryways, beautification as people are entering a city. Grants can be used to beautify city entryways. And other related projects. This can be seed coolers, herbicide storage, special protective gear. It's kind of a miscellaneous range of projects. And everything I presented is just some of the more common grants. There's other categories such as research that maybe universities will apply for. But these are what counties and cities tend to be the most interested in as far as the specialized equipment and education, gateway projects, those types of things. And then these specialized or other related projects. If there's a plan, the county or city can also apply to get free seed from my office. And this is funded through a Federal Highway Administration grant. Has gone through many different names. It's currently called the Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Program. This is the value of the seed mix I can provide. For example, last year, the diversity mix with 47 species had a value of $308 an acre. The cleanout mix had a value of $192 an acre. That's just how much I paid for them through my grant. That's free to the counties or cities, but you can see that adds up. If someone gets 10 acres worth, they're driving away with at least $2,000, $3,000 worth of seed. That's a savings for the local governments. Every fall, I asked every county or city with the plan, how much seed do you need? And then I can fulfill that. Just some examples of typical species provided, some of the common warm season, tall prairie grasses, and kind of mid-sized prairie grasses, such as big blue stem, little blue stem, Indian grass, switchgrass. And we also include 1 to 3 sedges or grass-like plants that have a lot of benefits, especially in wetter areas. It's nice to have that for the lowest elevation of the roadside. We provide a nice variety of wildflowers that bloom all throughout the year. If you care about pollinators, you know how important it is that bees and butterflies have access to nectar and pollen all the way from early spring to late fall. So that's why our seed mixes include all of that. We don't include common milkweed since that is so common out in the roadsides. It spreads well on its own, but we do include seed for butterfly milkweed and swamp milkweed, as well as many flowers that adult monarchs need. So it's not just about milkweed for monarchs, that's what they need to reproduce, but as adults, they need many other sources, not just milkweed. And of course, other butterflies or bees are adapted to other plants. So that's why we try to include a nice variety of wildflowers in the seed mixes. What we do in Iowa has national importance. Iowa lies entirely within the breeding range of the monarch butterfly. And it's also within the spring migration route and the fall migration route. So the habitat we have here matters to monarchs as other parts of the country, but we're one of the few states that are entirely within the summer breeding range. And as some of you may know, monarch populations continue to not do so well. This shows the total area occupied by monarchs at overwintering sites in Mexico. The second lowest level ever recorded was last winter. So like a lot of insects, populations fluctuate a lot year to year, but it has been showing a downward trend the last several years. And sometime by December, the Fish and Wildlife Service will be deciding if the monarch will be listed as endangered. Something that's kind of neat is that National Geographic wrote an article about monarch butterfly conservation that included some mention of Iowa's roadside program. They mentioned the importance of getting native plants out in Iowa roadsides as one way to provide habitat for monarchs. That was nice recognition. They interviewed some of the county roadside managers, some of the Tallgrass Prairie Center staff. And I would also like to mention, anytime I mention bees and butterflies, people ask, well, aren't you just luring them to their deaths? They're going to get killed by cars. Yes, some of them do get killed by cars, but studies have shown that those deaths represent less than 10% of the local population. There's a net benefit to having habitat in the roadsides, and they tend to forage more on the roadsides. If there's habitat, they have less reason to cross the road in search of flowers. So overall, it's a good thing to have native plants anywhere, including even in the roadsides, which can also act as travel corridors. In conclusion, if you'd like to learn more about your particular county's roadside program, you can go to the Tallgrass Prairie Center website, which is tallgrassprairiecenter.org. The very first tab is roadsides. If you click on that, you can learn about the impact of the program. The second line down is your county roadside program. You can click on that. You can click on a map that'll take you, or a link that will take you to a map that shows you contact information for the roadside manager or engineer in your county. Feel free to explore the website if you want to learn anything about prairie, but roadside information is on the far left. Finally, if you would like to reach out, if you have any questions, if you want to learn more about the seed mixes we provide or how to start a program, I can direct you to the right person at the DOT to talk about getting a plan in place. We have a presence on social media. Facebook has the Iowa Roadsides tab, Instagram, YouTube. You're welcome to check out any of those resources as well, but you're always free to email me or call me if you have any questions related to the roadside program. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the talks in this webinar.
We do have a follow-up question here. What do you think are the best ways partner agencies can help local county engineering departments to get more involved in roadside vegetative management? Sometimes engineers knowing nothing about plants, so on and so forth. You know, that's a really great question. And I don't know if you want to chime in at all, Christine or Griffin, but there's going to be kind of a couple of different audiences. So certainly the engineers department, secondary roads is one option to house a roadside program. County conservation is another option, but really getting those supervisors on board is going to be what's really key, because they're going to be the ultimate decision makers. Well, the voters are, but the supervisors are going to say yes or no, if we want a program or not. Anything to add to that, Christine, I guess, or?
Yeah, I've seen residents in counties successfully be able to, let the county board of supervisors or the engineer or conservation board director know the benefits of having a program, and then getting key people, whether it's conservation professionals within the community, explain here's the benefits. And then I've seen even engineers who said, well, I never even knew what a pollinator was. Then they're they change their minds because they're interested in the erosion control benefits or having a designated person, which is just a lot more efficient than them having to field calls about roadside vegetation. So definitely it's just knowing who these county officials will listen to, who has the information to present, whether that's local folks or me or Trees Forever staff, depending on the entity. We can all help get that message across and help you determine what kind of resources would help, I guess, inform your county officials about programs.
Okay, my name is Griffin Sabalka. I'm the roadside manager for Blackhawk County. I started this role here just a few years ago, and we're just really fortunate to pick up this program again here in the county. We were able to, I guess, back when IRVM was established, Blackhawk County was one of the first roadside counties in the state. So just picking up the tradition here, as well as working alongside you and I in the Tallgrass Prairie Center is just a kind of a big honor, and able to, try to better our roadways here in the county. I guess for those of you that don't know what IRVM is, it stands for Integrated Roadside Vegetation Management. Just a little history on this slide is just the legislation adopts this in 1988. And then a year later, the Living Roadway Trust Fund through the DOT was created. And that is where we get most of our grant and funding sources for our equipment and or other projects that we utilize very heavily to keep our programs efficient and running as well as we can. So that's just a really huge part of our program with getting financial support. Also another one, this was inducted into the Iowa Code at that time too, under that 314's section 314. So, this is here for the public and for Iowa's right-of-ways, whether that's state, local, or the county level. As long as you have an IRVM plan, you're covered under this this Code of Iowa. Here in Blackhawk County, this map's actually changed a little bit since we were gracious enough to get a new roadside spraying truck. This is just kind of my 1 to 5 year goals. The county is split into north and south of 20 now instead of 4 quadrants. We're able to get some of our equipment that we needed. We've got through a couple of grants this year. We were fortunate enough to grab a new hydro seeder, which is on my 3 to 5 year goals, and also a new spray logging system. So that system is just there to, help us keep more accurate records to prevent any discrepancies in, the future with, obviously with herbicide spraying. It's can be, we can run into situations with organics or anything like that, or a homeowner, things like that. So we're pretty fortunate to get these grants and hopefully to apply for more. But I would say our biggest goal in our county is we haven't had a program for probably 20 some years. So we've got a really harsh tree pressure problem within our right of ways. And that's one thing that we're trying to do with the piece of equipment that I'm in today with a brush boom mowing tractor. So that's something that we are, utilizing to manage brush, but also our herbicide spraying every year. And then also we go out and we cut brush as a secondary roads crew, in between the winter or fall and winter months. So then we're able to get out and get our boots on the ground that way too. So that would be a big one that we need to, keep our roadways safe and not letting this brush grow into trees that could potentially harm somebody if they were to go off the road. And then obviously with the whole IRVM program, we're here to implement roadside prairies, and that's something that I enjoy doing myself, and with its job and being able to create micro habitat per se. And most of our ditches are like 20 feet wide. And so creating these links to these larger blocks of CRP or anything along the river, things like that here in the county. We have two rivers, the Cedar and the Wapsie Finnegan River. So it's just really neat to try and create these habitats along the roadsides where most of our, areas are very heavily agricultured, and utilize these right of ways to give something back to the wildlife and to to the people that are driving around in the county. Just a little bit about our county. We do have a large city area, but that's still nothing short of what we have to manage. We have like 250 miles of hard surface roads and about 515 miles of gravel roads, which totals just shy of 5,000 acres of manageable right of way. So if you're thinking about needing to herbicide spray and manage half of the county, you're looking at 2,300 acres. So it's no short feat, but we're slowly learning as this comes into my year 3 of the program. This was last year's herbicide spraying season. It was before we had our new spray truck, and we were able to cover just about 3/4 of a half of a county, and it's myself and another gentleman that are spraying out there. So just a little bit of what we use for chemicals to try and reduce our weed pressure and our tree pressure. And just the green is everything that we covered this last year. Some of the things that we battle, you can see there on the left is just our tree pressure that we have. It is greater in some areas and not so bad in others, but as you can see, that's a pretty bad visual barrier that we have for roadway users and people coming out of that house's driveway. So those are things that, as a safety aspect, with the IRVM program, that we try to mitigate the risks of those car accidents. Then we also have some kind of exotic plants that we fight year to year with purple loosestrife in the middle, and Canada thistle, which is always a big problem. We've got some Japanese knotweed on the right, and that is becoming a larger problem more and more even throughout the state. So these are just some foes that we have that we spray for about every year. Well, and then of course we have our roadside prairie projects. A lot of these entail of what they call ditch cleanouts, reclaiming the soil from the agriculture loss from erosion. Roughly each year we do about 40 acres worth of native seedings with these ditch cleanouts. So we're getting a lot of habitat put back into the ground every year, and to manage these. And these are just some photos of like first year seedings and some other awesome prairie plants like rattlesnake master and New England aster, which are just just starting to wind down at this time of year, but they're found all over the county, and we're pretty. It's pretty neat to see some of these plants be successful their first year, or over when they were planted 20 years ago, and you can still see remnants of them in the right of ways. I would also like to mention too, in the county, since I've been here, we've started implementing Adopt a Roadside Prairie program, which is where a adjacent landowner is able to sign up for to have a prairie planting adjacent to land they own or operate. This just gives opportunity to the landowner to manage a native prairie by helping me out doing the mowings in the first few seasons, and then also doing a prescribed burn if they're comfortable on year 4 or 5 of the planting. So that's a program that's really taken off. We have about 6 landowners currently enrolled. That equates to about 2 acres total. And then on the right-hand side, that's actually one of our bridge projects, large bridge project that we did, and that's also part of another program is educational roadside prairies. That's something that is ongoing and just kind of starting out. Eventually, once we get a prairie established, we'll be putting out signage along the roadways for roadway users to stop and learn about these prairies that are, just on these projects or larger right-of-ways within the county on hard surface roads. This was just shy of last year. We had about 25 acres of natives planted. Educational roadside prairie sites, we had 2 planted that total about 8 acres. And then our Adopt a Roadside Prairie program's kind of in the pilot phase right now. And these are just some gems that we have found along the roadsides with cardinal flower, partridge pea. A really neat one that I have never even seen in a regular planting is a hoary pecone. That's a really, really cool one. Lead plant, and you name it. We have it out there. It might be sparse, but it's kind of cool to see. So yeah. And then here's some of our equipment that we utilize within the county. The picture of the tractor is actually the tractor that I'm in right now. So that's our newest brush tractor that we utilize. The spray truck on the left, top left, is what we were able to purchase and utilize this season. We have small drills, a larger drill, all kinds of just hand cutting equipment like chainsaws and brush cutting, weed whackers, things like that. Our hydro seeder, and we utilize our gator for spraying large right-of-ways to get in there, and also for prescribed burning. And then our brush chipper. So that's just some of our equipment. We have a little bit more, but that's all I could fit on here. And I'm just happy to, if you have any questions later on, to answer any. I'll stick on the rest of this program, and I appreciate your time today.
Griffin, excellent. And we actually do have a question right off the bat. So the question is, your year 1 goal is to spray a quarter of the county, is that right?
It was, and we did achieve that. And we were able to just spray just shy or just over a quarter of the county. So that was really helpful. And but this year we actually sprayed 3/4 of the county. It was pretty amazing what an actual spray truck would do for us, and the efficiency, even with all the rain that we had. we were still able to cover about 30 miles a day with our new spray truck. So really, really stepped up our progress and efficiency. Yeah.
So within those right of ways then, before you did your spraying, did you guys do any sort of like inventory within the right of way? And then if not, is there remnant areas that you had to worry about protecting from kind of the blanket spraying from the spray truck or?
Yeah, actually, there's two remnant prairies that I know of in our county. One is an old, it's the Bennington Township. It's an old cemetery right away, and um, and there's actually a lot of those pictures that I showed you, and I have many more actually on. I have my own work iNaturalist, and I think my first year I had an intern, and we probably took over 60 photos of different species within this remnant prairie, and it was really neat to see. And then we have another one that's just outside of Raymond, across from one of the a rock quarry, and that one there is pretty large too. I bet it's probably 5-6 acres worth of a remnant prairie. So yeah, really, really neat stuff. And yeah, they're a little more delicate because some of those species you don't find anywhere else. So
Another question here that came through, Griffin. Do you know how the program in Black Hawk County got started?
I know a little bit about, just with you and I in the Tallgrass Prairie Center. Christine might be able to answer it better than I, but um, she there was one predecessor before another gentleman that worked here, but he kind of kick-started, and I believe was one of the first um, back in the 80s there that started this program in the county. And I believe it's always been within maybe to start it was with conservation, but I do believe since then, since the first roadside manager, it's been in the engineering department. So yeah.
Christine, anything to add?
Yeah, as far as I know, it's always been the engineering department. There was a man who worked with Black Hawk County Conservation in the late 80s. He's the one who actually started it. He was one of the first ones in the state to start a program. So Black Hawk County was definitely one of the first ones to try this out. Bill Haywood worked for the conservation department. So he was a county employee, and he had just started. His focus was on the county level, but he'd travel around the state encouraging other counties to get involved.
Sure, sure. Well, that's a nice segue into our next question, which is, do you know of any nearby or adjacent counties that have a similar program? And maybe this is an opportunity to highlight the Roadside Conference that just took place. Griffin?
Yeah, we have 61 counties with a roadside plan. Counties near Black Hawk County that have a plan and a roadside manager include Bremer County, Buchanan County, Cerro Gordo County, Benton County. I think I may have mentioned that. Yeah, a lot of counties nearby. A lot of the programs are in the eastern part of the state.
My name is Ty Hamill. I'm the roadside vegetation management biologist for Story County Conservation as part of our integrated roadside vegetation management program. The concept of IRVM was to eliminate as much of the costs in fuel and herbicides of the late 80s and 90s when everything was just getting blanket sprayed. Everything was brome. Everything was just shoot all the weeds. Brome is, the pretty monoculture. But at that time when fuel kind of went up, they started looking at other ways and means of, managing roadsides. So that's kind of when IRVM started. But basically, there's all sorts of other benefits for, wildlife, erosion control, nutrient runoff, aesthetics, a lot of they call it like highway days or something, when it's just monoculture brome ditches out there. You're driving and there's nothing to look at, and, you can try and trance off driving. So we really believe kind of in the mission of IRVM, so we get really excited looking at prairie and talking about seed and, you know, equipment and things like that. And, you know, a lot of the spots that, you know, we hydro seed, that's just one little culvert, you know, we'll come back in a couple of years and it'll just be solid compass plants and switchgrass and blazing star and just like some really, really cool flowers out there. So like I said, we really get excited, you know, about roadsides.
Ty, tell us a little bit about Story County roadsides.
So a lot of roadside programs utilize the TAP seed program through the LRTF DOT, which is a huge resource for a lot of counties because a lot of the native grasses and forbs can get really expensive. So one thing that's really unique to Story County is we actually have a 1972 John Deere combine with a couple of harvesters, and we work with local citizens here within Story County that have some remnant prairies as well as planted prairies. So we combine between 350 and 400 pounds of native grass seed throughout the county each fall. And that all that goes back into the roadsides as a resource for Story County citizens. So I think one of the unique parts is kind of the history of the Story County roadside program. We were, I think, the third one off the board back in 1987. So we really have a storied history here with planting roadsides and developing the program here for the citizens of Story County.
That's amazing. When will you start harvesting some of these native plants from these remnants?
So just like other crops here in Iowa, they grow throughout the summer and then fall, kind of once everything's kind of ready to go. Usually October, you know, it kind of depends on the weather and when kind of the rain shuts off, but usually October into November is when we would start combine harvesting as well as hand harvesting throughout sites with volunteer groups and other conservation staff throughout the county. So we combine harvest grass seed, and then for forb seed, we hand harvest a lot of that throughout the summer. So that's our staff, seasonal staff, other conservation board staff, and that all gets put in our seed room to be processed later. We also do a lot of outreach programs in the fall as far as hand harvesting. There's a very popular event. We also partner with Alluvial Brewing for a happy hour harvest. That's one of our most popular, you know, for reasons you could probably imagine. But we can get 25 to 35 people out there, you know, in the evening, and then harvest a lot. A lot of our forb seed comes from a couple events in the fall. It's pretty cool.
Ty, give me a sense of the size and scale of managing the roadsides in Story County.
So in Story County, for our roadside program, we manage a little over 900 centerline miles throughout Story County. So we are one of the big ones. We don't have a big town or a big lake or anything to take up roads, so we manage quite a bit, all the way from Story City in the corner, all the way down to Collins in the other corner. So
900 miles. Wow. How do you get it all done?
So our staff here consists of myself and one full-time staff, and then we hire 2 spring/summer seasonals, and then depending on workload, we will also potentially hire a fall seasonal. So we stay pretty busy.
What's keeping you busy this time of year?
So right now we're brush spraying. We're doing a lot of fall mowing. We're getting ready for some fall burns. Now that everything's kind of stopped growing, we are putting mowing in fire breaks. So that makes it a little easier for us to start and stop fires. Again, kind of maintenance mowing. We'll be fall spraying for weeds again here, another little round, and just kind of starting on some of the maintenance of the equipment we've been using all summer.
Tell me a little bit about the equipment rentals that are available to landowners in Story County.
We have a Great Plains drop seeder. We'll also rent out the Vicon. So that goes on the back end of a tractor, and you can drive right down the middle of a ditch as long as the seed bed's prepped, and that just flings seed kind of right out of the back of it. A lot of times we'll lay down seed with that, and then we'll come back with like a cultipacker or kind of a harrow, and then that kind of that's nice and heavy, so that just kind of puts that seed right into the ground, and we get good seed to soil contact. So it's another piece of equipment you utilize a lot, and it works slick. I think I just did my report to the supervisors. I think we had 36 times from July 1 last year to June 30th, just this last summer. So 30 something rentals. I think they planted like 380 some acres on private land. So a lot of those are natives, and those are can also be cover crops. So like waterways, things of that, some pasture mixes, you know, so we stay busy just with equipment rentals in the spring and then in the fall. You know, for some of the equipment rentals we do, some folks don't have a new or big enough truck to handle the tongue weight on some of these equipment. So we also deliver and pick up too with our equipment rental program.
Do you do much for tree removals and brush management?
Lion's share of tree and brush removal and trimming is all done by secondary roads. So that was the opposite of Cerro Gordo. We would do all the brush, tree trimming, removal, everything. And that was what we did all winter. But here in Story County, the only brush work we do is spot spraying. So secondary roads does a lot of mechanical. We have, you know, contractors do 5 townships a year. That kind of keeps our head above water, but then we'll spot spray stuff that falls in the cracks, or our contractors, they're aware of our sensitive areas and we'll go in and we'll do those ourselves.
Ty, I want to thank you for your time here today and sharing with us all about integrated roadside vegetative management and the roadsides in Story County.
So I'm here at the home of Karen and Bob Hoyt, and I cannot tell you how awesome it is to see their little pollinator garden. So let's take a look.
Karen invited me over for a quick tour of the little slice of heaven that is their backyard. Karen is going to show me around and teach me about some of the beautiful native prairie plants she and Bob have cultivated and nurtured. Karen, thank you so much for the invitation and your time to show me around. Explain to me what we're looking at.
Old reconstructed prairie, and it was planted where there used to be a boring lawn. So we killed it off, and now it's safer for my husband, who doesn't have to mow on this hill, but it's covered with all native plants, and I tend it lovingly, get rid of those weeds, and they are thriving. They don't care if it's a drought. They just laugh.
I'm curious, what was your motivation for establishing this planting?
Stuffing with leaves and compost and bags of topsoil to try and stop the erosion. But what really worked was planting the right plants to put down their roots. And the 2 plants that worked well for us is the grass called cordgrass. It forms a network of underground rhizomes to hold the soil in place.
Prairie cordgrass, absolutely.
And also Canada anemone, which is a beautiful carpet with white flowers in the spring.
Excellent. Using native plants that are functional, the many benefits of all of these great native plants.
One interesting note about the cordgrass is that they used to call it ripgut, and it was a nickname because when the buffalo would run across the prairie, the leaves were so coarse they would slice their bellies.
Wow. Well, that makes sense. I suppose it was at the right height.
Right.
The animals traveling through.
And if you feel those long, slender leaves, they have a smooth side and a really coarse side. They're really tough, long, elegant leaves, and the Indians also used them for basketry.
Makes sense. The many wonders of the prairie.
There's just so much competition between these various prairie plants that you have to focus, instead of pulling weeds, you have to focus on which natives to rein in so they aren't allowed to take over.
I hardly ever see this anywhere near this big. And I'm not sure I've ever seen this flower.
The bees absolutely love this. One time I was walking down the steps where we have a lot of these that planted themselves along our steps, and I could hear this buzzing, and I thought our neighbor must be sawing wood over there. and then as I continued down the steps, I realized, oh my gosh, this is the bees at work.
Oh, look at the bee right there. Bumblebee. Here, little buddy. And that's why we do it right there. Look at all the insects on these native plants.
Those are anise hyssop.
Anise hyssop. And there's one in particular that really caught my eye. So we're going to move down here. Most of the liatris is done, and so I can only imagine what that looked like. But now there's this here. Now what are we looking at here?
This is the meadow blazing star.
A meadow blazing star.
I know it's the monarch's favorite because I watch them flutter around my prairie, and I already know before they land which plant they're going to go for, and it is this one. They love it.
Fantastic. Would you look at that? Right here in the middle of Marion, Iowa, this little oasis down by the creek, we can provide pollinator habitat just about anywhere, folks. So what are a couple of the species that we're looking at here?
This one is showy goldenrod. I just love it so much. It's going to burst into these beautiful yellow plumes that are just starting to open. So it's not as colorful as it will be in a few days, but there are lots of yellow flowers blooming this time of year.
Now these are the asters, right?
These are asters, and they're not as tall as you might think they should be, but I do like the deer do, and that's cut them off early in the spring. They eat them, I clip them, and then that allows them to bush out and make more flowers for the pollinators in the fall. This one here is stiff goldenrod, and it's just coming into its own this time of year. It's just showing its yellow flowers, and it's one of the beauties that you have to wait for. And here we have Indian grass. There's a lot of Indian grass, and it's just beautiful, set to motion by the wind in the fall. It's so three-dimensional compared to, let's say, an ordinary lawn. You walk through it and you get a sense of history. This one's called rosinweed. It's one of the many bright yellow daisy flowers that we see throughout the prairie later in the season. It's a really tall plant, and you can see it's holding its own next to these Indian grasses. Well, this is called ox-eye daisy. I'm not sure if it really looks like an oxen's eye, but it helps me remember the name of it.
Now what in the world are we looking at here?
These are indigo plants, and right now what you're seeing are the seed pods, but in the spring these have beautiful blooms that are sort of like, they look like legumes. So they're a unique kind of flower that forms a spike shape, and they just tower above the smaller plants that are growing this time of year. At this point, the pods are turning crispy, and if you shake them, you can hear them, and the Native Americans used to use them for baby rattles.
Now this is an interesting plant. What in the world are we looking at here?
This one's called cytosgramma, and you can tell why if you bend this to the side. Usually those, the inflorescence, they dangle from the side and will produce tons of seed. My grandchildren love pulling them off like this. Look at that.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Unique green color with the wine color alternating in the little blue stem makes it a real stunner in the fall. Really helped keep this little prairie healthy is that we do an annual burn every spring. So all the plants that you see here have reached this height in August after being burnt down to the ground in the spring in April.
It's an amazing sight here from the Karen Hoyt deck, looking at this beautiful native prairie behind me, reconstructed prairie full of natives. We have everything from purple coneflower to lead plant, compass plant, little blue stem, and more. I'd like to thank both Karen and Bob for the tour, their dedication to natives, and the inspiration
to utilize native prairie forbs and grasses in residential landscapes. Thanks again. Griffin, Christine, I'm going to open it up to whoever. The question is, how do you deal with right-of-ways within timbered areas? These areas often can't really grow prairie because there's not enough sun. So are you faced with the choice of getting rid of the brush, even though it's the only really vegetation present, or how might you handle that? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I can take this one. We have a lot of, like I said, rivers and streams throughout the county here. A lot of the right-of-ways are managed to keep the trees clear just for safety purposes. And a lot of those do have prairies planted within them. With the canopy opened up for where the roadway is, we do get some pretty decent establishments of prairies. Like for example, that one that I was telling you about, that bridge goes over the Cedar River, and that's probably one of our best seedings that we have that I like to showcase and take groups like Trees Forever. We had a field day a couple of weeks ago or a month ago and really promoted that area. So you'd be surprised where prairie can grow. It's kind of an impressive ecosystem in plants.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for taking that. Let's see if we have any more questions. And now is your time, folks, now or never. Get those questions in. Well, I'll maybe just wrap up with a couple of questions. Griffin, what's your favorite prairie forb?
My favorite prairie forb would probably, well, I got a couple. Probably be Rattlesnake Master is one of my favorites.
Sure.
And Rough Blazing Star. That's something that you don't see very often compared to our, our more common just Blazing Star. So I would say those two are probably my favorites.
And then Griffin, share with me some of the challenges so far that that you've encountered. Anything
Sure.
stick out?
Yeah, these last 2 years have been complete polar opposites for trying to establish a prairie. My first year, I was here and we had an extreme drought. We were in a D4 drought for all summer. So this spring, I went around to all of our sites and they just didn't look very good. They didn't look like they had any forbs or grasses coming up until we got the most amount of rain that the whole state's ever had in one growing season. So by the end of the summer here, you could say that it was a complete polar opposite. We've had ample amount of rain and our prairie seed really took off this late spring, early summer. And in some of my seedings that I thought were kind of doom and gloom, they kind of perked up and they really showed their colors, and native grasses were growing. And actually, here in August, the roadside pheasant count, is held every year. And, when I'm out spraying and things like that, I could really see the importance, just of game birds itself, and other, critters that are out and about, utilize our roadside prairies for nesting and feed source and cover for the winter. And it just really was cool to see in some of these new seedings within these 2 years that there are already species utilizing these prairies. And even with as wet as it was, the prairie still persisted, even if they were getting drowned out for those first few months of the year in April and in parts of May. So it's really cool to see how resilient they actually can be. I think that was where my main challenges these past few years is extreme drought and extreme wet. So yeah.
Sure. Well, fantastic. There's no more questions, so I think we're going to wrap things up. Check out the YouTube page. We'll get that posted here shortly. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. This is going to wrap up our Stewards of the Beautiful Land for 2024. Okay, have a great day. Have a great week, everyone. Have a safe fall.